just glad that you guys could make it. And what it means is we can maybe make this a little bit more interactive. So please feel free, as said, to put any questions in there, or come off mute and just ask a question if you want to. So today's session, built to exit, how to redesign your business so it can run itself. So my name's Steve Young. I'm a director of and lead scale-up coach for Winning Pitch. I've been involved with 3 exits of small businesses. Pretty much joined them when they were very small, and was involved in exiting. And recently, in fact, Winning Pitch, our own organization, was acquired by a big organization back in January. So quite fresh from the experience, shall I say. So what are we going to do today? We've got about 45 minutes. What you'll learn today: why working longer days, weekends and bank holidays is not the answer to your productivity problem. I know we've got 1 or 2 smaller business people on the line today, and some of the bigger ones as well. But working longer and harder isn't the answer to your problem, I don't think. What is? We'll talk about it. How to make your employees act like owners and free yourself from micromanaging. We'll talk about how to pinpoint your business's most influential, important focus on that one function and why that's most critical to your business. And then finally, we'll help people to overcome their learned helplessness by developing them into process improvement gurus. There you go. We've got 45 minutes to do that in. Crikey. Who wrote this? I think I did. All righty, let's make a start. So it was about, I guess, pre-COVID, a couple of years ago, I was delivering a conference talking about how to grow your business. And the topic I was talking about was, how do you know how big your business could get or should get? So it was really an opportunity to help business leaders in the audience think about and size up, I guess, their ambition, really. What's the size of ambition? How big do they want to get to? And what does growth mean for them? It also gave a chance for some people in the audience who were thinking about exiting to maybe think, if they wanted, for example, to exit in 3 years, what would a plan look like, a 3-year plan look like for their business? So I was demonstrating this particular tool, and we haven't got a lot of time to show you it today, but we can maybe pick it up on a future session if you were interested. But basically, it's the 3-year visioning orbit tool. And a bit like a dartboard, you can see in the center, you've got the current year, and the outermost ring, you've got 3 years out, so 23, 24. And then the year in from that, the circle in from that is 2 years out, and the circle in from that is 1 year out. So in essence, it's basically mapping out the sort of next, as well as your current year, the next 3 years of your business and what it's going to look like in 3 years' time. And then we can put some quadrants in, and we put some financial, anything in this sort of quadrant was going to be financial led, anything in this quadrant was going to be customers, anything in this operations, people, etc. And then what we basically did was use the tool to, I guess, put some idea of what size of business do we want to be when we grow up in 3 years' time? What size do we want to be when we might want to exit in 3 years' time? And what are the implications of that? So on one page, we were able to sort of create this growth vision. So we started doing things like start off with turnover, for example, and said, okay, so this was a startup business, actually. This was done with, what turnover do you want to be in 3 years' time? And they said, well, £2 million. What are you at the moment? Oh, only 10K. Okay. So let's chunk that back. So in 3 years, you want to be 2 million. Year 2, you maybe need to be about 1 million. Year 1, 200K. At your moment, 10K. Okay. So we can start to, I guess, chunk it back from the destination. A little bit like the, which rod catches the fish puzzle, if you're a kid who's ever seen that, or if you've got kids who've done that, where you have all the fishing rods along the top and all the rods and all the lines are mixed up. And the question is, which rod catches the fish? And if you've got a marketing degree like me, you go, oh, I'll try A and I follow that one, and that's not it. And B, and try that one, that's not it. C, no, that's not it. And all the people in the audience there from manufacturing or quality or engineers say, start the fish and work backwards. That's the fastest way to find which rod catch. And it's the same with this. Think about where you want to be in 3 years' time and work backwards to that. So we do the same with turnover. And then I said, well, what about profitability? What does that need to be on in 3 years' time on 2 million, 400K? Okay, chunk that back. How many customers would that mean approximately, based on an average price? then blend of customers in terms of, different types of customers in 3 years' time. Is there any exporting? Let's put some new product development on here in terms of the operations piece and how many pieces, where we're going to locate the manufacturing, how many employees we'll need, etc. And then in the end, we also added on, we might need some investment in year one. A really cool tool, very powerful. If you've not done this exercise, I would advise you to do it. And as I say, there's an opportunity for, if you are interested, we may be able to do it for you. So just drop us a line on that. But anyway, we were delivering this at a conference, and at the end of sort of the morning session, I was just having my lunch, and a chap came up to me and said, "Whilst you're having your sandwich, can you value my business?" And my initial reaction, to be brutally honest, was, well, actually, valuing your business is quite a complicated thing, or it can be, and I really wouldn't want to give you a wrong steer whilst I'm stood here having a sandwich and a glass of orange juice. But he was quite persistent and said, "Come on, I'm sure you can give me some idea." And as he put it, "I want to make a wedge." So I said, "Okay then." So I said, "Well, don't keep me to this, but let me ask you first of all, what's your turnover of your business? What's your profitability, and what sector are you in?" So he said, "Oh, I'm a comms agency, £8 million turnover, only washing its face in terms of profitability." I said, "Okay. Next question would be maybe, why do you want to leave?" And he said, "I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the long hours. I'm sick of the morons I employ, and I've had enough. I want to exit. I want to go, and I want to go to Spain." So I said, "Okay, so what you're talking about is actually a clean exit. You're not going to be there any longer. You're just going to go." And he said, "Yeah." Okay. So I said, "What's your role in the business at the moment? Tell me who sort of wins the big new clients?" And he said, "Well, I do that, obviously, because I'm the owner of the business, and I can do that." He said, "I've got a couple of graduates who are quite junior." He said, "But generally speaking, it's me that has to win the work, and I tee up." Okay. So I said, who does the sort of really technical work then, the really value-adding work? And he said, "Oh, that's me, really, because the graduates, they're only graduates, so I've got to do most of that technical work, and I have to work very, very long hours and weekends." And he said, "And would you believe it, I'm still not making any profit." So he said, "That's why I want to exit." So I said, "Okay." And he said, "Have you got an idea of how much it's worth?" And I said, "Well, what's your current value of your current clients, your current contracts at the moment?" So he said, "Well, about maybe got sort of, don't know, difficult to say, but maybe let's say £300,000 maybe, or 30,000, I don't know." So I said, "Okay. So you haven't got a massive long-term contract commitment through many clients?" He said, No. It's quite difficult to do that in our industry." Okay, I said, "I think I'm coming to a figure." And he said, "Good." He said, "I'm looking for a couple of million." I said, "Okay." I said, "On what basis?" He said, "Because my turnover is 8 million at the moment." So I said, "Okay, but your profitability is just washing its face." He said, "Yeah." So I said, "Okay, well," I said, I've got a rough figure in mind." And he said, "What is it?" And I said, it's zero. And if someone could have hit me over the head with a paper plate, he would have done it. He said, "A zero? I want to make a wedge." And I said, we all want to make a wedge. But I said, at the moment, I would say that for any potential buyer of your business, apart from the value of the contracts you've got, your business is almost worth zero. And the reason why that is because you are the business. So if you up and leave, they lose the person who's winning the work. They lose the person who's doing the work. They lose the person who's got all the experience and knowledge. And what are they left with? So that really struck a chord, I think, for him. So he said, "Oh, well, that's just terrible news. And what am I going to do?" And I said, "Look, what I will say is your business is worth zero at the moment, but in a couple of years' time, if you put the right things in place, if you're able to create a business that can work without you, that can build a business that will, we can build a business that will allow you to walk away wealthy, but it will take probably 18 months to 2 years to do." And if you can wait that long, it's going to be worth it. So that's kind of, I guess, the issue of why we're doing today's webinar is because, there's lots of exit options when you're thinking of exiting. And this isn't just for people with established businesses. This is for new businesses as well that are just kicking off, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs that are thinking about maybe exit. And what do you need to do and what you need to put in place now? Because for exit, it's not just about how ready your business is to be sold and exited. It's also you as the owner, your mental readiness. And if you think about those on a sort of a 2x2 matrix with business readiness, high to low on the left-hand side and owner's mental readiness along the bottom, we can actually put these in boxes and sort of say, well, top left, high business readiness, low mental readiness, well off but chooses to work. Top right, rich and ready to go. So therefore the owner's ready, absolutely ready to sell, got it fully familiarized in his or her mind. And the business is absolutely prepared to go, rich and ready to go, top right. Bottom left, low readiness and low owner's mental readiness, stay and grow it. And then bottom right is what we call get me out the highest price. And there are different exit options within those 4 boxes. And this is what I kind of drew out for this guy and sort of said, look, at the moment, to be honest, you're in the bottom right-hand corner, which is going to be a fire sale, and you're never going to make the most value from your business that way. What we want to do is get a bit more owner's mental readiness and business readiness such that we can start to get a better price and actually just build a better business. And if nothing else happens in the end of the 2 years, at least you've got a better, more profitable business, and at least you've got your life back again. Because I'm a big one for entrepreneurial poverty at the moment. I see a lot of people working really long hours, and that's not the answer. Honestly, I've been there myself, and I've tried working longer into the night. I've tried getting up early, very early in the morning. I've worked weekends, I work bank holidays, and all that does is just give me more stuff to do. It's Parkinson's Law, isn't it, that work expands into the time that you give it. And sometimes I feel that, and certainly some of the clients I've worked with, there's no end to how much they will free up. They'll give up their birthdays, they'll give up their bank holidays, they'll give up Christmas just to get more stuff done. But it's not the answer. What you want, instead of you working harder, you want your business to work harder. And that's kind of hopefully what I'll go on to show you here. We say Parkinson's Law, work expands to fill the time. So you'll always probably, if you're a dedicated entrepreneur or dedicated chap or lady, sometimes we don't have an off switch. So it'll never all get done because we'll always give it more time. So I'm not a firm believer. Obviously, we want to be as productive as possible, but I think we need to shift you guys from being doers to designers. So let's just have a quick think of the steps. I'm going to go through 4 steps fairly quickly. Each will have some examples. Each will have an action step, a small action step after each of the 4 steps. So what I plan to do in the next sort of 35 minutes is really go through this, I suppose, at a reasonable pace, because I know you guys are bright and sparky people, and you will take what you want from this particular presentation. My aim is to excite you or to be a catalyst for you to go, actually, that thing that you mentioned there, can I do some more on that? Or could I have a work package on this? Or maybe another event on that particular topic? So let's just look at these 4 steps. So the first thing to do, I guess, to build a business, or redesign a business that it can run itself on rails. The first thing I would do is to analyze how and where you spend both your company's time and your own time. Because what I'm aware of is we've got some people on the call today that are actually very small businesses. I think we've even got maybe some solo entrepreneurs on today. So they are the business. I get it. So when we talk about how much time you do this in the business, it's you. We've also got some bigger organizations on. So obviously you guys will have teams to do stuff. So that's kind of the thing. So we'll look at both. So the thing about time is that we've all have the same amount of time, all of us, 30 minutes is about 2% of our day. And we've got a number of 30-minute blocks in our day. And you and I, the only thing we have absolutely in common is we've got the same amount of minutes in a 24-hour clock. So it doesn't matter whether you are Nelson Mandela or whether you are, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a trendy, modern example of a good musician. So ABBA, let's go with them. I don't know, whoever you are, whoever you are, there's only the same amount of minutes in every day. So don't say there's not enough time or minutes in the day, because some people have done some fantastically wonderful things with those minutes, same amount as you. It's what you do with those minutes and those hours. So if we're going to think about that, then maybe we've got to think about, well, how do we spend our day as the leaders? How do we spend our time as a business? So we split that down into 4 Ds is the way that we do it anyway. So there's doing time, so that's doing activities, that's doing tasks. There's deciding, so this is you maybe deciding, making decisions on giving tasks to people. So sort of task rabbits, really. Here is a task to do, Bob or Sheila, and you just give them a task to do, but you also have to deal with any questions that they come back with. There's delegating time. So this is when we actually delegate rather than just a task, but we delegate an outcome. Here's the outcome I want you to come back with. You decide. And then designing. This is actually the time that you spend, I guess, redesigning the business, making changes and improving things. So we've got doing, deciding, delegating, and designing. Now, the ideal average for any business, on average for any business, as I say, and I'm using the word business there deliberately, is, in my experience, is about 80% doing, 2% deciding, 8% delegating, 10% designing. So 80, 2, 8, and 10. And this obviously is an average for the business. So if you're a single person solopreneur that's running your own business, then it's 80, 2, 8, 10 in that order. If you're an MD of a business that maybe has 30 employees, then you might have to, because some of the people in your team will be maybe 99% doing and maybe 1% deciding. So you will then, from an average point of view, you will then be doing less doing and more delegating, designing, deciding, etc. So where do we start with thinking about our time is actually analysing how we spend our time is a good place to begin. And I'm saying that these sort of averages are useful. And it might be an interesting exercise for you guys to think about. When we do workshops, obviously we do this as a templated workshop, and people think about their last week that they've spent or their last 2 weeks and start to, I guess, work out maybe the last 30 days, what percentage of their time has their business, do you think, spent doing, deciding, delegating and designing, and how close is it to that template? And then also maybe themselves as the owner manager, you know, how many hours did they work? And in this example, you can see this chap worked 70 plus hours and he was only doing 60%, deciding 35%, which is quite a lot of decisions. And he said, oh, I need to handle queries and sign-offs, so therefore that's why that's high. Delegating 2%, designing 3%. So again, actually sort of, I guess, analysing how you spend your time and how that relates to your business is a good first step to take. Now, I know what a number of you are thinking is, but Steve, this all sounds great, not doing the doing, moving to do more time doing designing or deciding, all that's all good stuff. But Steve, what you don't understand is that I'm the only person that can do what I do. I'm absolutely key to this business. I am the person who does the doing. So if I don't do it, there's nobody else to do it. And I get that. And obviously, again, if you're a solopreneur, I totally get it. But in my experience, what I've found is that actually, if you're trying to grow your business, you're trying to scale your business, if you're not thinking of changing from doing to designing or moving that responsibility away, then you're always going to be, I guess, the business is always going to be constrained by how many hours or how many days you're prepared to work in the week. And also, it's always going to be constrained by that. But also, if you got sick or if you want to take a holiday, then you know, clearly the doing isn't getting done. So there's no way the business can grow then. But I do get but I'm the only person that can do this. And that's why I started the business off. And therefore it's not easy to pass it on. But what I think about is I just reference a chap called Sir Peter Lilly in the 17th century. He was an artist, and obviously an artist is quite a specialist thing to do. And he became very successful. In fact, got a lot of commissions and ended up being the artist for the royal family. And the thing that he did was paint beautiful portraits. But what he was known for was actually the faces. He could capture a face brilliantly, much better than anybody else. But then the commissions started to roll in. And obviously he was doing all the doing. So, you know, he had a choice, either turn them down or find some way of delegating, designing, other way of doing it. So what he did was actually, there's a wonderful called the Windsor Beauties. And this commission came in for the royal family. He didn't feel like he was in a position to turn it down. So what he actually did was thought and asked people what it was about his painting that people really loved more than anything else. And it turned out it was the faces, how he captured people's faces, particularly ladies' faces. He was brilliant. There was a magic associated to it. So what he did was he was actually one of the first people in art to actually say, okay, if the face is the real thing and I've got all this work to do, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the face. But then he actually employed a team, about 20 or 30 helpers, assistants. And what he did was he painted the face and then literally just sketched out in charcoal the actual position of the person and gave them a reference for a color of the dress and any props and positions of those props that he wanted, and then left them to finish it off. He just did the faces. And that's how he managed to move from doer to designer and delegator. And I think he's probably the first doer, designer, delegator of fine art. But very famous, but it allowed him to do thousands of portraits, all at a very high standard, all well paid, rather than just the hundreds that other people could do. So Peter Lilly. So I think all I would say is if you're in that place where you're thinking this can't work in my business because I'm the only one who can, then just try and think about which bits of it you could delegate, if any. And that's our first little action point really from a first session, is take one small action. For me, step one would be commit to reducing your doing and increasing your designing time by 2%, which, as I've said, just 30 minutes a week. We can all find 30 minutes a week. Put it in your diary. I would suggest maybe on a Friday morning or a Monday morning before anything else starts, and then block that in for the next, let's say, 3 months and see where that gets us to. And then try your 4D analysis again and see if we've shifted that dial by at least 2%. So that is analyzing your own time and your company's time. Step two, focus your time on doing one thing that builds value into your business. So what I talk about here is what we call the queen bee role. So if you think about organizations, one of the best organizations I know that scales really successfully and grows very successfully is a beehive. And one of the reasons why it grows and scales so well is that because whilst there's different types of bees in the beehive, and whilst they've all got different roles, what they're all very focused on is one thing, which is the survival of and growth of the colony. And the most important part of that process that needs to be supported and protected is the queen bee role. So the queen bee role is really important because she's the only one that lays eggs. Hence the fact it allows the colony to survive and grow. That's not to say the queen bee is the most important person or bee in the beehive. There's other bees in there, because if this particular queen bee stops producing eggs, then they'll soon kick her out and they'll get another queen bee in. So she's not the most important person, but the role is, the activity is the most important. The activity. So whilst the other bees do wonderful things, so they go out and get pollen, they bring that back, they keep the temperature of the hive down, the other bees protect the hive. They all have different jobs, but the key role is to protect and serve the queen bee so she can lay the eggs. And that's kind of where, if we have managed to reduce the amount of time we do doing, what should we focus on? And I would suggest you need to focus on your queen bee role for your organization. So how do we work out what that is? Well, as I've said with a beehive, what do you want to be known for? Well, this beehive wants to be known for survival and growth of the colony. And if we sort of peel back the onion of one layer, as it were, what's the most important thing for that success? Well, it's the sufficient laying of a number of eggs, healthy eggs. But if we put that over to other organizations that are successfully scaled and successfully managed to build something that's really, really profitable and really attractive, say FedEx, what do they want to be known for? What's their sort of brand promise? And, it's delivery of your package on time. Okay, let's sort of peel back the onion one layer. What's the most success? What's the sort of the really activity that hinges on is their logistics process. That's what they need to focus on and get really good, particularly if they wanted to exit and maybe sell their business to someone, make it attractive, build value. The logistics process. Now, somebody might say, well, but what about their customer service process? That's important. Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. Customer service process is important, but you wouldn't need to handle complaints if the logistics process worked well. Well, what about their marketing? Yeah, the marketing is important, but if FedEx don't deliver your package on time, then it's going to be really tough to do anything else well. So that's their QBR, that's their queen bee role, is their logistics process. And in ad agency I was working with, I said to them, what do you want to be known for? If you want to make yourself really attractive to maybe exit and maybe sell. And they said, well, we always approach our clients' problems with a unique point of view. So again, after some discussion, we came to an agreement that their ideation, their idea creation, if you like, process, that was the most success. That was the process, the activity on which their success really hinged on. And if they got their ideation process right and really good, that would make them attractive. That would make them in a better position for their owner and leader to exit eventually. So your business, what do you want to be known for? What's your brand promise? And then think about what's the most sort of, I guess, again, what's the activity? If you peel back the onion one stage there with your business, what's the one activity on which your success really sort of hinges? Maybe have to think about that and just jot that down. What's your queen bee role? As I say, it's not a person, it's not a machine, it's an activity that we must get right, because that's what's going to make us attractive in the marketplace when we want to exit. The other area to look at is then to think about your own time. So I'll just very quickly show you here. This was a company I was working with that was into gyms, and they wanted to look and prepare themselves for exit, but again, working stupid hours. So I asked the MD there to actually jot down what hours he was working, and he's only given me the hours that he wanted to admit to. I know he did probably about twice these hours, but anyway. And what we did there was to say, well, how many hours are you doing? So map out the hours, and then we went through it, and I just challenged him on every one of these as to which of these activities we could trash, as in we don't do it, which we could transfer to someone else, maybe an employee or a consultant or an agency or someone, which of these activities we could trim so we could do quicker, and which we shouldn't want to touch, the ones you've got to keep. And you can see here, you've got all these activities and the hours he spent. Now, for this organization, they were creating a gym that had a fit education planning system. Don't ask, their words, not mine. So that was their queen bee role. That was their QBR. So that they needed to protect and serve that. So that allowed me then, as their sort of mentor, to really challenge them on all these other things. So the marketing campaigns, why are you spending 10 hours a week on marketing? And he said, well, someone's got to do it. And I said, yeah, but it doesn't have to be you. You know, can you transfer that to like an agency or a graduate or maybe somebody in-house? We still need to do it, but it doesn't have to be you. You need to be adding value to the business. Gym membership update, which it turns out nobody read. So I suggested we trashed that. R&D tests for the fit education system. Now that was clearly part of their QBR. So I said, no, I wouldn't touch that. That's absolutely fine. Internal training, you know, and he said, well, I've got to do it. So you don't have to do that. You know, let's transfer that to someone else in the business. So it got an arrow. Purchasing new equipment, again, 4 hours has to be done. But my challenge was, does it have to take 4 hours of your time? Same with invoicing. You know, he said, well, I've got to do all the invoicing. You know, I said, you know, I don't think you do. You know, think about some of the wonderful people like Jeff Bezos and people like that, you know, Amazon and things like that. They don't do their own invoicing, do they? They have someone to do it. And actually, it's a better use of your time to focus on the QBR. So get someone in, or part-time, or someone in the organization, and let's move it from there. Photography was a weird one. He said, I just enjoy doing the photography for their leaflets. So I said, well, you know, again, that's not adding value to the business. So, you know, get someone else in to do that. We transfer out. And the same with customer handling of customer service queries. They had very similar questions. Someone else could do that. We need to transfer that. And the time we've got there, we've saved, we reinvest, or he was going to reinvest with supporting and protecting the queen bee role, the one thing that added real value and would make their business much more attractive to a potential buyer. So step 2 is really thinking about, I suppose, focusing your time on the one thing that builds. So maybe have a think about analyzing your time for the past 4 weeks. You know, maybe looking forward this week, just keep track of what activities you do, how many hours, and then challenge yourself. You know, which of that time can I trash, not do? Which can I transfer to someone else? Which can I trim? And which mustn't I touch, because actually it is key to the QBR, the queen bee role. So that was step 2. Step 3 is design and delegate the tasks in the process that sit behind the queen bee role. So here, what we're talking about here is, we talked about the fact that we need to move from you being the doer, doing stuff, and what I need you to shift you to being is a designer and a delegator of stuff. And in this case, we're talking about the QBR, which we've agreed everybody, like in the beehive, we've all got our day jobs to do, but we must also protect and serve the queen bee role. So what I'm saying here for you guys, particularly if you're the leader, is to design and delegate the tasks in the key processes, particularly those that sit behind the queen bee role. So what do I mean by that? Okay, quick quiz. The fastest growing business that runs itself, it runs on rails, the growth anyway. So these, let's just have a think. Do you know who this is? Grown to 36,000 outlets across 119 countries. Massive growth. Whole operation serves 75 units a second. Takes 2 weeks from a brown site to operational. That's some slick processes there. Whoops. 1 outlet per day, opened in China. World's largest toy distributor. And most interestingly here, the average turnover of a business unit is 1.4 million, or about 8% profitability. So not only are they growing fast, there's predictable turnover, quite reasonable, and sustainable profitability. But most interestingly, most are led by a manager whose average age is about 24. You may have just seen it as I flick through it then. So, but yes, we're talking about McDonald's there. And I'm not making a political point here about how good McDonald's food is or anything like that, or whether McDonald's is a good company or not. What I'm saying is, here is a business that's grown really fast and delivers their business on rails consistently. You know, your average McDonald's, 1.4 million turnover, 8% profitability, led by a manager whose age is up to only 24. Some of the people in his team, or her team, are going to be a lot younger than that. And the magic in some ways of McDonald's is they take a grumpy teenager who won't tidy their room and turn them into someone who takes pride in running the French fry section within weeks. And that is, as someone who's got a couple of teenagers, that's quite a miracle. So if we look at the Queen Bee role here for McDonald's, what do they want to be known for? Okay, providing fast food that offers consistent quality at great value. Okay, so what does their success hinge on? Well, interestingly, they are a franchise model. So if those of you who've read E-Myth and books like that talk about thinking about how you run your business a bit like a franchise, not necessarily a franchise, but having that sort of ownership as a credo is interesting. But for me, I suppose the key thing is efficient and operational processes from preparation to serving. That's, I guess, their QBR for me, is their operational processes. And what's interesting also to me is that if you have simple, logical, repeatable, recorded processes, and you don't need highly paid staff. On average, I did some analysis on McDonald's, and on average, every £1 spent on under 18 salary generates about £170 worth of turnover for them. And on average, every £1 spent on an over 25 salary generates about £113 of turnover. Now, I've also seen it where people have gone out because they need a business development director and spent, 70, 80, 90,000 pounds on someone who turned out not to be able to do the job. And I guess the challenge I would offer you guys is you don't need highly paid staff if you have processes that are simple, logical, repeatable, and recorded. You just need someone who can follow a process and need to train them. And that's what McDonald's do. There's everywhere you go in terms of McDonald's, everybody when they start is given cheat sheets, how-to guides of how to make each of the burgers if you're in that particular section. They spend a lot of time training, reviewing, helping you to come up with better ideas, improvement plans. They invest a lot in their staff. And that's how they get that consistency. They show them how to do it. So a couple of things here. What I'm not saying here is, I know there's probably a few people groaning now going, oh my goodness, Steve, don't tell me I've got to write those dreaded standard operating procedures manuals that you can see in the top left. And you'll be pleased to say, I'm not. I'm not going to advocate that, because I know I've done it several times myself. They take ages to write. And also, in my experience, people just don't read them. How frustrating is that? There's a task that you want to just ditch completely. So we recognize that we need to capture the processes and tasks. And what I would say is you're already doing these systems and processes already. So what I would suggest is, rather than trying to create the systems and processes and the operations manuals and all that lot, is I would say capture what you do at the moment and then use that to build on. So think about the capture, the processes, your Queen Bee processes or sub-processes that sit below it. And if could be something to do with a communication piece where you're talking to a client, for example. It could be a physical action, I don't know, digging a ditch or something like that. It could be interacting with something like how do you complete a customer record on your CRM system, or it could be all three. But what I would suggest is, as someone who's been through the pain of the operations manuals, what I would suggest is let's use the technology we've got. So our iPhone or our smartphone that we've got has video, has recording on it. So what I would say is anything to do with communication, speaking or writing, if you need to capture how to do it or how we do it at the moment, then rather than writing a sales operation manual, is I would capture it as we do it at the moment on a smartphone recorder, save that on your server or in the cloud. So the next person can listen to it and then trial it out themselves. And if it can be improved, improve it. You've got a phone as well. You try it. Physical action. I would again use my phone, video how it's done at the moment, so you can actually see, make the invisible visible. And if somebody can improve it, then they do the next version. But again, it's saved on the cloud. It's not in a manual on a shelf. And then finally, interacting with something like computers. There's lots of computer screen recording software available, and that's a good way of doing it. But the key thing here that I'm suggesting is maybe you need to initially capture it the way we do it at the moment. But when queries arise or changes need to be made, you empower others to do it, not you. Step 3, action. Capture your first key process that sits behind your QBR. So just capture it maybe in the next few days. Is it by phone? Is it going to video someone doing something or you doing something? Or is it going to be screen capture? But capture it as it is, and then look to pass that on to someone else to say, this is how we do it at the moment, but what I want you to do is to improve on it. So you do the next version. Step 4, delegate and make employees accountable for the results and the outcomes. So this is, we've moved from now, instead of doing, I said I want to shift you from doing. You're no longer thinking, you shouldn't spend most of your time doing now. You should be thinking about looking at greater proportions of your time spent designing and delegating and decision making. So here's step 4, delegating and make employees accountable for the results and outcomes. So just have a quick little video, two-minute video around, hopefully that demonstrates what I call employees' learned helplessness.
Whoa, that's not good.
Oh, I don't need this. I'm already late.
Somebody will come. Anybody out there?
Do you have a phone?
No. Sorry. Somebody! Hello? There are 2 people stuck on an escalator and we need help. Now, would somebody please do something? I don't believe this. You gotta be kidding me.
I'm gonna cry.
Okay, so maybe we've all been there sometimes with our employees thinking, why on earth don't they just use a bit of initiative? Why on earth don't they just? And I think, to be honest, unlike my friend that I referred to at the start of our talk today, they're not morons. I think you, me, if we're in this position, we've helped them. We've helped them to get this learned helplessness. We need to help them make decisions, and maybe because we've always helped them out. That's the way the culture is. So we need to change that. So we more empower them, we more delegate them, not just to take a task, to do something, but also be more accountable for the result and the outcome. So we could spend a long time on this, but steps of delegation is really, for me, it's a throttle, it's not a switch. So you move from, first of all, assigning the task to someone, then you eventually, after that, a little bit of time, you assign the responsibility for doing it. It's their job, they know they've got to do it. Then we can make them accountable for the result, which could be 100 widgets at the end of the line, or whatever, this completed to this standard by this particular time. So we make them accountable for the result. And then finally, we make them accountable for the outcome. So this could actually be a profitability outcome. This could actually be something about the business, a similar outcome to the sort of outcome you're after when you're doing your board meetings or your monthly and month-end finances. So for me, delegating is eventually about actually delegating the outcome, not just the task. And that's the way that we can start to get employees to act more like owners rather than learned helplessness. But as I say, it's a stage thing, steady progression towards that as we take people on. What we also can do is get them to overcome learned helplessness by asking questions. So when we say, well, I'd like to set some objectives for your one-to-ones, etc., maybe a better way would be to get them, rather than them saying, oh, I don't know, it's really difficult, or Tony's a pain, or it's a nightmare doing this job, or whatever, is get them to start to think, what's happening or not happening that's causing a problem? What do you want to be happening? and then turn that into a SMART goal. So we're drawing from them and getting them to think a little bit more in deep about what the problems are, what we want to achieve, and then turn that into a SMART goal. And then we're getting them to take more ownership of what their goals are and the targets, and how, making it clear to them how their performance will be evaluated. And again, step by step, but this is a good way to sort of start to set goals. And then what we can do is help them by showing them, I guess, how data can make decision making easier. So this is really about coaching them, I suppose, in terms of, and developing them so that they can get better at what they do. So with techniques like this 3-bar gate, as it were, you can see here, left-hand side is the ideal 100% appointments for this telemarketing campaign. What was the actual? Well, it was 10% appointments and 90% no appointments. So 90% of them, we break that down by doing another graph on the right-hand side, and then we can start to see why things are going wrong and what we need to do to put it right. But even this simple 3-bar graph, showing someone that technique, in this particular case, with this organization, they identified that was £36,000 of the waste, that telemarketing campaign that cost 40 grand, 90% waste. It was highlighted by one of their employees who got shown some fairly rudimentary process improvement techniques and data captures. Here's another one where they mapped out the process. It was quite a complicated process, and then just what is called a measles chart. They put crosses on which bit of the process where it went wrong, and then came up with ideas to say how they could make sure it doesn't go wrong again. So you can see that middle one, that middle process step with all the X's on. They said, well, that's clearly where it mostly goes wrong. So why don't we have a checklist there? And then while we're at it, let's work on some of the other areas. So we've got a questionnaire there at the start. We've got a video of what good looks like here. We've got an example of what good looks like document. And again, quite simple sort of ideas, but it's them being delegated to come up with an outcome rather than just doing a task. So step 4 is set one person in your team, maybe some objectives, focusing on results or outcomes, and delegate that rather than just tasks. So I guess the final sort of couple of slides is really about working on the multiplier side of the equation. So what I'm saying here is this is a business that came to us that wanted to exit, but from their point of view, the situation was that he said, oh, I've got to get really busy. If I'm going to exit, I want to boost the value I'm going to get for my business. So therefore, I've got to really work on the turnover side. So I need to go out and spend much more time working harder on business development. And I respectfully suggested to him, no, you don't want to work harder. You don't want to work harder. You're already working stupid hours. The business needs to work harder, not you. So if the value that you're going to get when you exit and sell this business is a multiple of turnover times a multiplier equals the value of the business, then let's work on the multiplier rather than in his case, the turnover. So we did. And over a period of, as you can see, maybe a couple of years it took, they were originally put their 1.3 million turnover, 300k in net profit. So the estimated value of this business was about 1.5 million pounds with a multiplier of 5. So that's how much it was worth. So again, going back to our idea of preparing the business and the owner before we exit, we did various activities, that you can see there. Oops. 1 second. That you can see there that we carried out. And over a period of time, through working with them and helping them prepare, you can see the QBR process improvement in there. They moved there, and actually, instead of 1.3 turnover, 300k, they grew the business, which is great, to 4 million turnover, 1.5 net profit, 37% profit. But the value of the business, instead of being 1.5 million, was then valued at 22.5 million. And actually what actually happened was a PE house came and wanted to acquire the business, but the owner, because he was actually now enjoying working in the business, because it was working a lot better as a business, he only sold 50%. He wanted to stay involved. So he got about £10 million, just over £10 million for the business, and he still retained control. But that was a multiplier of 15. So rather than just working on the business development and the turnover side of the equation, work on the other side by building a business that runs on rails, and work on the multiplier, because that can have a massive impact. And the final, I guess, slide for today really is really about, I guess I've called it the letter you want to write to yourself. So I suppose for me, it goes something like this. This is a letter to yourself. So this letter is to advise you that as of 3 years from today, your services are no longer required by this business. Whilst your valuable input will be welcome, our quarterly planning and review meetings, and of course, you should feel free to pop in now and then for a coffee and catch up with the team, you are no longer expected to play an active role in this business. The reason for this is quite simple. Over the past 12 months, you've developed simple, logical and repeatable systems in every area of the business and recorded them so the team can be trained to follow them consistently. As a result, every task is now performed to the high standards that you set, and every team member takes full ownership of achieving that standard every time. The ongoing feedback and performance review inspire the team, and we know both growth and profitability are strong. Everyone loves working here, and while you're a pleasure to work for, you are simply not needed anymore. I therefore respectfully suggest that you use your newfound freedom to focus on growth, to create, to enjoy your time with your family, or do whatever it is you love doing. Please have your desk cleared by 5 p.m. on insert date, at which time we're cracking open a large bottle of bubbly to celebrate with you. So maybe that's the letter that we all want to write ourselves in 3 years' time if we're thinking about exit. But we need to prepare if we're going to build a business for exit, and if you're going to walk away wealthy. Okay, so that's the end of our presentation. We're, I think, 5 minutes over on time there. What I'm prepared to do is, if anybody's got any questions, I'll open it up for questions. If you want to come off mute, or if you want to pop in the box, that would be fine. Anybody got any questions? I know we're a little bit running late, so I quite understand if you want to drop any questions from there. What I will say is that we obviously have more webinars coming up. I'll just in the chat, I'll just post the Eventbrite link so you can see the additional events that we have coming up. But if anybody's got any final call on the questions, feel free to email me or to email the program. And if you want more information on any of the events or any of the tools we've talked about, then just drop me a line.
Oh, yeah, a lot of information there to digest, I think. Very insightful, definitely be used. Anybody want to come off? Bit wary of Zoom kicking you off at some point as well, though. So if you do think of anything, then I know Steve will be happy to, if you email him or through us, and we can send an email to Steve then as well. I will have a question though, Steve. You've got to come up with somebody a bit more modern than ABBA for your webinar presentation.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm so trendy, aren't I? Yeah, I think that's. Yeah,
they're probably all still thinking, really, who were ABBA? Some of these people might be saying, who is that? But thanks everyone for giving up your time this morning. Thanks this afternoon. Thanks, Steve, for being with us. And we look forward to seeing you on future presentations. I think we've got Steve again the end of the month. If you're not booked onto that one, to book up on there as well.
All righty, good stuff. Hope it was useful. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.